Okay, so for this question, what you want to do is follow, since it's just an expression, not an equation will have an equal sign in it. An expression, what you always want to do is just simplify it. And to simplify something, you follow the order of operations. Even though you have variables in here, it still follows, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So first you look inside of the parentheses and you see if there's anything that you can do inside the parentheses. And there isn't in here, because you have to have like terms to combine anything. In here, there's nothing you can combine either. So now what you want to do is take care of the subtraction sign. This is really like a -1, and so you're going to take this and you're going to multiply it, or we call it distribute it, into the second parenthesis. So our problem would turn into, and I'm going to rewrite this as well, and since there's nothing in front of the parenthesis here, I can actually drop my parentheses now because I've already checked to make sure there wasn't anything inside of there that could be completed. So I'm going to have 5x squared minus 4x plus 5 minus 3x squared, because if I take a -1 times a positive 3x squared, a negative times a positive is a negative. Now I'm going to take a -1 times a negative 6x. This sign here goes with the 6x. So that is a positive 6x. Negative times a negative is a positive. And then I have -1 times positive 2, which is a -2. So I'm going to have -2, if I can squeeze that in. And now I just look for like terms. So in order for something to be a like term, it has to have the same variable and the same exponent. So 5x squared and minus 3x squared would go together. To put them together, you just combine the coefficients in front. So you have 5 minus 3, which is 2, and then you just put the x squared at the end. So you're not going to mess with the variable or the exponent. You just add or subtract the coefficients in front and then tag that on at the end. Okay, now you're going to have minus 4x and positive 6x. Those are like terms because they both have an x to the first power. So we take a positive 6 and a minus 4 and put those together and we get a positive 2, and then just again add the x on the end. And last we have positive 5 and minus 2, which would be a positive 3. So there's your answer. Okay, so for this question, use the rectangle to answer the question, which represents the area of the triangle. So you know the area of a triangle is base times height. So we want to take the base of this triangle, which is h plus 5, and multiply it by the height, which is 2h minus 1. And then this problem, to complete it, is a little different than the last one. The last problem you had a subtraction sign in between the parentheses. Here we don't. If you don't, then how you want to simplify this is by FOIL. Stands for first terms, outer terms, inner terms, and last terms. I like to just remember it as a smiley face. So let me draw it for you and then I'll show you the parts of the face. But these lines that I'm drawing will help you remember what to multiply together. So hopefully you can see it. The lines up here are the eyebrows, this is the nose, the mouth, and then the ears. Okay, so if you just remember make a face, then that'll remind you which terms to multiply together to simplify this. So you're going to take h times 2h. So be careful when you're multiplying. You multiply the numbers in front, so I'm going to take the 2 times, there's really a 1 right there. And that 2 times 1 is 2. I'm also going to multiply h times h, 2 h's together. Remember, h times h means you have 2 of them, and we write that as h squared. So be really careful, as opposed on the last problem when we were adding, let me go back to that really quick. Remember when we were adding 5x squared to minus 3x squared, I said don't do anything with the x squared, okay? That's if you're adding or subtracting. All you do is you take the 5 and the minus 3 and get 2, and then you leave the x squared alone. Now we are multiplying, though. We're in multiplying mode, so the rules are different. You take however many h's you have and you add them together, and that's your exponent. Okay? Then we're going to do the next eyebrow. So positive 5 times minus 1 is going to give us minus 5. And I'm going to write that, I always write that one last. And then the nose and the mouth are in between. So here we're going to multiply. We're going to take 5 times 2, which is 10, positive 10. And then there's only one h, so it's just h, or this is really, if you don't write the exponent, it's really h to the first power. Okay? And then we're going to take negative 1 times positive 1h. Negative 1 times 1 is minus 1, and then you just have an h. Okay? So this is what you get. Now look at what's going on here. It's adding or subtracting. Okay? So you got to switch rules and look for like terms. Okay? That's probably the hardest part, is to remember all the different rules. Now we're looking for like terms. Really the only like terms are these two in the middle, which is why I wrote them next to each other. When you FOIL, that'll usually be the case. And so you have positive 10 minus 1, which is positive 9. So this is going to be 2h squared plus 9. And then remember, if you're adding or subtracting, you just leave the h as h. The h is what tells you it's a like term. You don't do anything with it. You just look for the same letters and exponents. And then that is your answer there. Okay, let's take a look at this one. It says, use the polynomial to answer the question, which represents the polynomial in factored form. Okay, the first rule of any factoring problem is to look for a GCF. That means greatest common factor. Okay, so you're looking for a GCF, greatest common factor. And a greatest common factor is just a factor that they all have in common. So just think of a number that would go into 21, 9, and 12. The highest number. Greatest means highest. So the biggest number that would go into all of those is 3. So that tells me that I can pull a 3 out or factor a 3 out. Okay? You also look at your variables. Here we have 4k's, here we have 3k's, and here we have 2k's. So they all have at least 2. So that means that we can factor out a k squared. Okay? So once you decide what the GCF is, you write that in front, and then you put a parenthesis next to it, like so. And then you're going to come back, and you're going to say, okay, if I take 21 and I divide it by 3, what am I left with? Well, 21 divided by 3 is 7, right? So you write 7, and then you think about the k's. Well, I took 2 out front. There were 4 to begin with, so how many are left? 2. Okay? Now do the same thing, just moving to this term. So I'm pulling a 3 out. I'm factoring a 3 out, which is division. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and it's a positive 9 divided by 3. So it's a positive 3 that's left. I had 2 k's that I'm pulling out. There were 3 in there to begin with, but I'm going to pull 2 of them out in front. So there's only 1 left. So just k to the first power, or k. Okay. Same thing with the last term. I'm going to divide by 3, divide the coefficient by 3. It's a negative 12 divided by a positive 3, which is a negative 4, minus 4. And then there aren't going to be any k's left because there were only 2 here to begin with, and I'm factoring all of those out. Okay, and there's your answer. And the reason that you can check and see if you did it right is if you took the 3k squared and you multiplied it by 7k squared, ask yourself what you'd get. Well, remember your multiplication rules. You're going to multiply 3 times 7, and that'll give you the 21 back. And then remember, when you're multiplying, you add up the exponents. So you have 2 plus 2, which would give you the k to the 4th back. Okay, so that's how you could continue with the others, and just double check and make sure that you get these back, and then you know you did it correctly. But it would be choice B. Okay, on this one, this is also a FOIL problem, but it's backwards FOIL. So remember here how we had 2 parentheses, and we did the face, and we got this in the end. You didn't have any parentheses left. It was just 3 terms. Well, now we're starting from the end and trying to get it back to parentheses, so it's the opposite. So, you know, students tend to not like this one as much, but if you think of it this way, it's not so hard. Okay, what I want you to do is make a t-chart, okay? And you're going to think of numbers that multiply to your last term, multiply to positive 20, but add to negative 9. Okay, so multiply to positive 20, but add up to negative 9. Okay, so let's think of some factors of 20. Well, and positive 20. So positive 1 times positive 20. There's positive 4 times positive 5. There's positive 2 times positive 10. Okay, and then you're going to go through and you're going to say, okay, do any of those add to negative 9? Oh, and, okay, so a good thing to notice, a negative 9, if you think of these, if I do 1 plus 20, 4 plus 5, 2 plus 10, none of those are going to add to a negative. So don't forget that not only does positive 1 times positive 20 multiply to a positive 20, but a negative 1 times a negative 20. Remember, a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, so negative 4 times negative 5 would also multiply to negative 20. Negative 2 times negative 10 would also multiply to negative 20. Okay, which combination of those would add to negative 9? Well, if I take negative 1 plus negative 20, that's not going to work. That adds up to negative 21. But if I have negative 4 plus negative 5, yep, that's my combination. Okay, that adds up to negative 9. So once you find that answer, that combination, it's pretty simple. You just take the variable that's squared, you place it in the beginning of each parenthesis, and then you just put in these exact numbers, minus 4 and minus 5, and you're done. So the chart is really the key thing. Do the chart. It's pretty easy. I hope this helps.